I think we are officially live. So welcome everybody to another Pokemon Rants. Here today, we're honored with a special guest, Ryan from PikaPikaPapa. Ryan takes his deep analysis, amazing delivery, and perhaps delivers it with the most energy of anybody in Pokemon space while making it fun and digestible. He brings with us nearly 20 years of sports cards experience and the joy that is Pokemon. And of course, him and his family pave a new path for the future Pokemon community members to come after us. So thank you, Ryan, for joining us. And thanks for having us here on Pokemon Rants, buddy.
Hey, thanks so much for having me join. I'm really excited, and we're going to have a ton of fun on this call.
It's going to be a good one, man. So it's going to take a few minutes, Ryan, and just kind of introduce yourself. Let us know kind of your background, how you brought us into the Pokemon space, and where you kind of come from, and we'll jump in from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, I cut my teeth in the sports card space. You know, I still remember when I bought my very first PSA slab. It was like 20 years ago, and I was visiting a girlfriend at the time up in Gainesville, Florida. Probably had one too many Chardonnays on the night, and I was on eBay at like midnight, and I'd always loved football cards and always collected them, and I came across this Joe Montana rookie in a PSA 7. Didn't even know what PSA was, but I was like, I gotta have it. Clicked the button, ordered it.
Buy now.
Yeah, buy it now. Came in the mail, and honestly, once I just held that slab in my hand, I thought it was really just something special. And so I was like, all right, before I go head first, I'm going to order one more. And I ordered a 1955 Bowman Len Ford card. Now, back then, PSA would designate the cards. There was like MK, OC, all these different designations, PD for print dots. They don't do that anymore. But it was an OC card. Didn't even know what that meant. But when I got that one in the mail, you know, I love the cardboard, but I started thinking about the history behind it too. I'm like, man, how many people have exchanged hands? How many people have touched this and looked at this over the, 50 plus years? And I was just in hook, line, and sinker. And it was a PSA 8, so it was really sharp. And that was it, man. So that's how I got into sports card things. I was in full on in head first.
Were you a collector before that though, Ryan?
I would like to say I've always been a collector of things. I just think it's kind of in my DNA. I think people like you and me and people in the Pokemon hobby in general, like if I'm not collecting football cards, then, it's something. And I've always been a sports card collector. So my, really cool early memories. I remember waiting in line at Publix with my mom as a young man and just picking up a pack of cards in line, back in the 80s. And those aren't worth the cardboard they're printed on. But, fond memories. Yeah, I've always been a card collector for sure.
Yeah, same here. We did a lot of Don Russ and on those older games that we used to collect. I still have them all. But yeah, that's where my journey started too. So it was baseball, basketball. Those were probably the ones that I did. A lot of the Michael Jordans back in the day, Upper Deck. Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, baseball was me back in the day. I didn't graduate to football until later on in my collecting life. But I got plenty of stuff.
Ryan, as I think through this, and I was watching a lot of your videos, for many times now, and I've actually given you a couple of shout outs where respect is due, and the analysis that you do is just sweet stuff, man. It's home runs. I love the way you deliver it. I love how you bring the different pieces together, but also I can feel the sports card history behind a lot of your research and just knowing that market very well, and then transposing yourself over to Pokemon. How did you make that transition to Pokemon? What was those couple of key things that brought you in and the journey there?
That's a great question. So you're right. Like I still do sports cards. Sports cards is still a percentage of the time that I spend. But I've done it for so long, it's almost automatic at this point. I can spend 80% of my attention on Pokemon and 20% on sports cards and still be able to be impactful in that space. But there's just sports card space in general changing. It got to the point where it was so complex. If you can buy $1,000 boxes that have 5 cards in it, right? There's cut autographs, there's rookie patch autographs, there's serial number cards. It got to the point where my football card collection is NFL Hall of Fame rookie cards. So it's very narrow focus. Like I wanted the best players, their most expensive cards, and the highest grade that I could possibly obtain. And I started that focus 20 years ago, and it's still my focus to this day. And it's a crazy landscape, like even today, right? So like there's Panini, which is the major producer of football cards right now. Fanatics was trying to buy Panini. It fell through. So then Panini sued Fanatics. Now Fanatics sued Panini. And guess what? Now the NFLPA has pulled the license from Panini. There might not be any football cards this year. There might not be any licensed football cards. And the whole space is just crazy. So that, and probably the most important thing was my daughter. They've watched me collect ever since they've been born. And when she was 5, she came to me and she said, Daddy, she said, I want to do with Pokemon cards what you do with sports cards. And I was like,
nice.
Done. We are in. Forget about it. You can take all those sports cards and throw them in the trash. You're telling me that I can collect and do this with my daughter?
Kids. Yeah, this is it. Yep.
We started ripping packs, and she was just so into it. And it was a great marriage of the two things that, I really love in life. My family first and foremost, and then I'm a big collector. So it was really special.
I can share that. You can probably see a little bit down here. This bottom section of this bookshelf is all my kids. They have them set up just the way they want it. So Daddy, don't touch it. I said, don't worry, I won't touch it. It's all yours.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Good stuff,
I love
man.
it. Yeah.
And so once you got in, much like myself, we kind of jump in. We run straight to Target or Walmart at that point in time. We kind of check out what we can do with the kids.
That's right.
Did you take it any further? I think it's. Is it Kenzie and Zoe, right?
That's right. Yes, sir. Kenzie and Zoe.
Yeah. What's the ages?
7 and 5. 7 and 4.
7 and 5.
Geez, she's almost 5. 7 and 4 right now.
Okay. I'm 8 and 5, so I'm right there with you. Are you playing any TCG yet? Have they gotten into it?
They haven't gotten into the game. They're really just into the collecting side of things. Obviously, big into Pikachu. My youngest one, she loves anything blue. So we're talking Squirtle all over the place here. Yep. So they're into the OGs, but we haven't really gotten into the game. That was, to be honest, Lorcana is something that we're kind of looking to maybe play that game a little bit here. They really
I was going to ask
characters that. And it's the very beginning of that. So we might get into the playing side of things there, but. The collecting things, we try and make it a lesson too. It's not just putting a collection aside, but we always talk about the dollars and cents behind it. Not that that's the important thing, but we're always trying to teach life lessons as we're going through this process as well. And so we have a lot of fun with it. And they're smart. I mean, it's hard to say that. I'm sure that these kids, these 8 and 7-year-olds, like I was dumb when I was 7 and 8. Like I didn't know what the heck was going on, right? These kids know way more than I did.
I was just set collecting 1 through whatever the number was, and that was pretty much as far as it went for me. My son, and especially my younger son, he's swindling, man. He'll go to a local card shop. He'll talk these people out of a $50 card and give them just a bunch of reverse hollows. I'm like, geez.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And they get away with it because they're so darn cute, right? They can do anything they want to do.
And they're like, no, it's not a good trade. And he's like, why not?
Prove me wrong.
That's right. We got a confirmation here from Snug Nasty. He loves your top-notch delivery there, Ryan. So definitely getting the repercussion there from the audience. They love it too.
Really appreciate that.
So as you got into the Pokemon space, then what made you want to start maybe a YouTube channel? Because did you have one for sports before this, or was Pokemon your first kind of step into YouTube?
I had dabbled a little bit into the sports cards, but I didn't enjoy it, to be honest with you. It felt more like work to me. And I am a researcher through and through. I won't buy a freaking toaster oven unless I do a ton of research. Like, I'm sure that surprises nobody who's on this. So, we were buying packs and we were having fun in the Pokemon space. But, when I knew that the love was real with my daughter and this was something we were going to continue, of course, what do we all do? We go to YouTube, And so I was set out that I want to learn everything that I can. And there's amazing content out there and amazing content creators. Like they're just so talented. But I always found myself kind of walking away wanting a little bit more, like whether it's my business life, my personal life, I always say this, like I want to spend 80% on the why and 20% on the what. Like it's easy for us to sit here and talk about, hey, this is what you should do, or this is what we should buy, or et cetera, et cetera. But like, I always say we need to spend more time explaining the why, because that's how the what becomes impactful. And I found myself walking away a lot of times just wondering, okay, but why? Like I love it. It's cool. It's great. Hey, listen, tag team cards are hot, and then they show this was the all-time high. This was the all-time low. And then the next tag team card, this was the all-time high and this was the all-time low. And I'm like, cool. But like, I'm in this hardcore, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm here to invest, baby. So that was why. And I've always had a data-driven approach to most of what I do. So I just figured I could layer it in here, and it's been a ton of fun along the way.
Yeah, that why, it just takes me back to a little bit of Simon Sinek. Start with why, right?
That's right.
It's a great way to look at anything from business to personal life.
Yep.
When you think about that, Ryan, I actually wondered a few times as I watched your analysis. I said, well, this must be driven from perhaps his background, his job. So, what is it you actually do, Ryan, for a living? If you don't mind me asking.
No, not at all. I'm one of those. I refer to myself as a corporate jackbooted thug. So, I get to sit in an office and probably make a bunch of dumb decisions. I run 2 divisions for the company that I'm a part of. I'm
Okay.
in the tech space, and I run our service and repair division,
Okay.
and then I also run our home office tech support center. So if anybody needs help over the phone or whatever, so I run the call center side, and I also run our brick and mortar turning screws side of things. So.
Okay.
I got my data analysis because I started with a startup like 7 years ago, and I joined this really small tech repair company. I'd never even heard of it. Nobody had ever heard of it. I don't know why I joined. It was the stupidest move I ever did. But we had no resources. I was the first outside hire. I was the oldest guy on the team, and we had no resources. So anytime we wanted to
Here comes Excel, right?
do something, that's right. Here came Excel, right? We have to build it ourselves. And
Right.
we learned a lot along the way, and I certainly grew by leaps and bounds out of necessity. And so that's where that comes through. And, a lot of my business decisions are all data driven. I always say this, data doesn't tell you what to do, but it tells you where to look. And what I like to do is I like to have this give me an idea of, hey, listen, where should I be looking? And then we can go from there. But I think it's really applicable in the Pokemon space, more so.
Well,
than
it is. I mean, and maybe not as much with toasters, but definitely Pokemon.
Listen, I got an epic freaking toaster sitting there in the kitchen, bro. It'll brown things. It'll pop things up. It'll tell my phone when it's done.
That's right. Put a little Star Wars symbol right on the toast. It's good to go, man.
That's right, man. That's right.
Good stuff, buddy. When I think about this as well, I was also wondering, because I'm going to weave a lot of the sports in and out of this, because I think it's something we don't see a lot. At least it's not spoken about too much. And, having 20 years of experience, and you kind of outline this in some of your videos, because I always go back and I watch some of the earliest stuff. I watch, of course, all your new stuff. And I do this with a lot of the people that we have on the podcast. Yeah. And I think at some point you were mentioning that, Pokemon's in its infancy in terms of just years. Now, obviously, we still call things vintage. We still call things modern. But from just a pure perspective of number of years that have passed, we're still in a very young age in comparison to sports cards or other cards that have been running for, early 1900s or slightly before.
Yep.
And with that, so I'm going to weave a lot of the sports in and out of the conversation, because I think it's such an interesting perspective and what we can kind of compare and contrast between the two. Not that we should all the time, but you can learn a lot. And back to your previous point, what you can learn from that data, I think is always helpful as you look into something that's still starting anew, and probably will go through some of the same stumbles and pitfalls that sports cards have went through, and hopefully not some of the bad ones.
Yeah. You're right. There's one word you've never heard me say on my channel. Even if you watch every single video, you've never heard me use the word vintage.
Oh, okay.
Vintage. No. I've never said the word vintage. There is no vintage Pokemon as far as I'm concerned. Like, I get it. Pokemon started in 1996 over in Japan, 1999 here in the US. Like, I get, but nothing from 1999 in my mind is vintage. But that's not a bad, like, that's exciting for me.
It's good.
That is incredibly exciting. Like, back behind closed doors, I'm putting together a PSA 10 Shadowless set. And I mean, I'm picking these cards up for 30-something bucks a pop,
Now's a good time.
It's great because I'm not in this for a year or 3 years or 5 years, right? Like, I'm in this to see where we're going to be 10, 20, 30 years down the road. Yeah. And, the populations are different. You can't really compare them to vintage sports cards, right? Because back then, the oldest card in my collection, I got a 1911 T206 Ty Cobb. I got a lot from the 33, 35 era. So that point you can't really compare. But the fact that these will be nostalgic for years to come. This is the beginning of Pokemon. Right. As long as the Pokemon hobby continues to do what I think we all believe it will do, and grow and expand and get bigger over the years, like, the population report isn't necessarily as important, because as long as the collector base grows, then the population report continues to become diluted. So
And that was a point I brought up also with Retro in my last podcast. Shout out Nick. It was a good conversation, man. And in that regards, one of the things I think we often miss to talk about is, we always, at least within the Pokemon space, we were comparing the old pop reports, 10 years ago to the pop reports today. And it was like, well, the numbers are too high. There's 1,000 of these or 2,000 of these, graded. That's a valid point, and it's a good piece of data. But what's the population and demand, which we don't have a number for, right?
That's
So
right.
without that understanding, that number is almost meaningless. Now, it still means something, but you don't understand what the demand is on that population if you don't understand, of course, what's out there in terms of the community. So I think we definitely have seen a huge exponential growth with Pokemon. And that's why the pop numbers didn't make as much sense, but yet we still see the popularity, we still see the sales, we still see the higher prices, and that's because people want it and they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah. I mean, I do I do a TCG player top 10 video every single month. And, I'm always talking about the Moonbreon card. And one of the metrics that I always add in there is how many new PSA 10s we have added to the population, because that's every month. It's like we get another 300, 400. Last month, I think it was 500 brand new PSA 10s of that Evolving Skies Umbreon that are now out there in circulation. But the price hasn't seemed to be super depressed over. Like, it's starting to normalize a bit. It's starting to come back down. The raw card's down a little bit, but the market as a whole is down. So for me, it's really interesting for a card like that to say, hey, like, what is too high?
Right.
I don't know. I don't think any of us know, right? Like, there's nothing in the world that's going to tell us
when
that,
sales stop, right?
That's exactly right. But everybody's buying it, and I keep sitting here on the sideline like an idiot. I'm like, well, I'm not touching it, and it just keeps doing what it's doing.
It's too high.
Right. It keeps doing its thing. So
it has dropped a little bit recently. So in terms of overall price, so I might bite the bullet or maybe just try to pull my own, but I don't want to go down the pulling route. That would just be terrible. I got enough Evolving Skies already in the bulk, so I don't need any more. Awesome. One of the things I was also thinking about, Ryan, is what would be some of the key kind of, I would say, areas of skills you transposed from sports to Pokemon? As you transitioned, obviously you knew probably the right places to look. You knew how to grade cards, and I'm guessing here, you can confirm these points, but grading cards, storage, protection. I mean, what were some of those key things that you were able to just bring over, and you already had a head start on a lot of the people that were starting out for the first time, being their first collecting card experience?
Yeah, certainly the grading side of things is pretty big for me. And then when you've done something as long as I have, I mean, think about everything that's happened over the last 20 years. And I've collected cardboard through all of it, right? Like, we've gone through the biggest bull market in the history of the US. Like, there was a 2007 to 2008 recession, right? Like, Greek defaulted on its bank. Like, all of these things happened. Heck, Brexit happened, right? In 2016. I mean, you think about all of these huge things that have shook up the world, the global economy at times. And I was right there buying cards or not buying cards, right? So I've seen these huge shifts. And, I didn't buy any cards during the pandemic, because I just knew this is not right. This doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? I'm excited. I watched my value of my collection just skyrocket. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I approached every single purchase with this crazy amount of trepidation, because it just didn't make sense. And I knew it was going to normalize. And we're seeing that on the Pokemon side a lot right now, right? Like, we're starting to see things normalize to pre-pandemic pricing. And that's not a crash to me. It's a normalization, and it's what should be expected. I've put more time into this video that I'm launching than I have in any other video. And I've probably shot it 20 times already, because I just want it to be perfect. And I keep shooting, and it's just not there. But it's like a comparison to what sports cards have done over the last 25 years. And I'm also going to look at pre-pandemic, post-pandemic Pokemon card movements. But there's a lot of buy and hold. There's a lot of wait. There's a lot of waiting. Like, when you look at how sports cards, which is a fully baked product, to your point, like, they've been early 1900s, 1800s, late 1800s is when some of those cards were out. There's years and years and years where it's flat.
Yes.
So
same in Pokemon. Yeah.
Same in Pokemon, right? Like, it's going to happen, and you have to be in it for the long haul. That doesn't mean that if you're not following the data, it doesn't mean that there's not great buys. It doesn't mean that you can't make money. Like, of course you can do that, but just the whole market as a whole is going to have these periods where it's just flat. So I think that just the experience, just being through it all, I keep a very level head. I say the two greatest things that have helped my sports card collection reach where it is just focus and time. I had a very narrow focus. I
I
shared that
could
with you
see.
earlier. I had a super narrow focus on what I was going after, and 20 years. So,
And that's the same thing I speak about on the channel as well. When we talked about investment perspectives, I don't speak in terms of years. I talk about decades.
that's right.
Because
Yep.
anything within the years, yes, you could make gains, but it's almost like time in the market, and I don't play that game.
Right. Yeah, timing the market or timing the market, right?
Exactly.
One's a winning solution, one's a losing one. So
Yeah,
I
I'll
love
go for the
that.
first one.
That's right.
You mentioned it a little bit already. I think when I watched the first, 10 or so of your videos, you mentioned you were also starting to collect some of those PSA early, 1999 WotC cards. You started getting to first edition. You started getting to Shadowless. How's that collection coming along, and kind of what's your description of yourself in terms of a collector? Are you more of a PSA? Are you a binder guy? Where do you sit on the spectrum?
I'm PSA through and through.
All the way?
I am hardcore PSA all the way. Now I buy a ton of singles. I send them in to get graded. But I don't put them in a
You're
binder.
not a binder guy. Okay.
If I buy something, my intent is to have it graded. If I get it in the mail and it doesn't check the boxes I needed to check to get graded, I list it right back on eBay. I don't want to hold it. That's just not it. Again, focus, right, and time, and having raw cards just isn't a part of my focus. I love the fact that, and it's not just for the value appreciation. It's just because I like to be able to display them, right? Like I got them chilling behind me over here, and I like to show them to friends when they come over, and I feel more comfortable showing them in the slabs. And PSA set registry is one of the big things that I got into early on.
Okay.
I have that. Obviously, my NFL Hall of Fame rookie card collection is in the PSA set registry. And my goal in the beginning was I want to be in percent. There are people out there there's athletes, movie stars. There are people who have infinitely more money than I ever will who are in that set. So the goal of being in the top 3 or 5, it's just not realistic for me. But top 20% I can be, and I'm there.
That's pretty good.
That's fine. I'll take it. But when the set started, there was like 40 of us fighting in the set, and now it's over 400. So it's crazy to watch it grow. Yeah.
One interesting thing I've always wondered, because I haven't been into PSA very long. Even when I was doing, collecting back in the day, I was the kid in the binder, had them in, the large shoe boxes. That was me. Yeah. How does it handle over time? I was always curious. For somebody who's held a slab for 20 years, how does it age? Do you have anything that you see an impact on the cards? The plastic maybe doesn't handle well. Obviously, keep it out of light and handle proper, humidity.
Yeah, as long as you keep it out of light. So I have in my house, I've got a big lit, I don't know what you call it, an armoire or some nonsense like that, a big cabinet that's got lights in it, and we have a lot of my favorite cards are displayed there. The high dollar ones we have in a safety deposit box. But when you walk in through my front door, like that's one of the first things you see, and it's really cool to display it. And I've displayed them for as long as I can remember, and
no problems.
No ill effects, at least on my side. Now I do know that if you expose them to direct sunlight, if you want to show them on your wall and you put it right in front of a window, like the cards will fade. They're not really UV resistant. Exactly. But for me, and I take them out. I don't treat them like, China dolls or anything, or precious eggs. Yeah.
I hear something.
Hello, I hear you. Right.
It's making a noise, honey.
That's right. No, they've aged just fine. And
okay, I was curious because I've never held one for quite that long, and most of the people I talk to haven't had a card for 20 plus years. So I was curious if it's kind of handled well over time, and the plastics obviously have improved in the resins, but I was curious if they had any issues for somebody who's actually had one for 20 plus years.
No, man, and they've been through moves, and they've been displayed in different cases. And at one point, I had them up on my wall, and I mean, I've had them in all kinds of different scenarios, and they've done really good. Yeah,
good stuff. Well, good. I'm glad I have the ones I have in PSA then. I'll keep a few. I'm definitely a binder guy myself. I mentioned that before in a couple of other streams, but it's just, I love to flip through the binder. I love to open it up, flip through it, just kind of look at the whole set. I like to go from start to finish in terms of master sets. So it's just always been the way I collected. Check off the little box, a little bit of dopamine hit there and say, okay, I got this card. I got 2 left. Yeah, and that was always the way I've looked at collecting. So,
and that's so cool. And that's how I feel about the set registry, right? Like I get the same amount of excitement when I get to say, okay, I've only got 35 cards left and I'm complete. Like you check one off, and it's nice. It's exciting, man. It is nice. It gets me pumped up,
I was wondering, Ron, you do a lot of this over the years. Do you run a business behind what you do? Do you have this sitting underneath kind of something you're going to prepare for the future and transition maybe in your retirement years, or where do you sit from that
Uh,
perspective?
yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that. I do have like something I'd love to do in my retirement. I don't have any Pokemon business. Me and my wife have a couple
Okay.
small businesses that we own and run outside of our regular jobs. But my dream in retirement, I would love to run like a not-for-profit sports card shop or Pokemon shop and
Mhm.
combination of the two. And, I want it to pay for itself. I'm not saying that I want to be pumping money into it in my retirement, but one of the things that makes me the most sad is everywhere I go, and I travel a lot for work. I shared that with you. I'm on the road all the time. And if I get a couple minutes, I go into local card shops because that's where I want to
Yeah.
spend my money. I want to support those brick and mortar stores and the individuals there. And
Yeah.
everyone I go into, it's so hard because they're not overly
They're
competitive
struggling.
from a pricing
Yeah.
standpoint. And as much as I want to support them, I always end up walking away with something. I'm never going to walk out empty handed, but I would spend more if they were able to be competitive. And I'd love
I
it if
know.
we could just have a place in my town where I could display my lifelong collection on the walls and people could come in and see it and think, oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's from 2023. That's so long ago, bro. Check that out.
Look at this vintage.
That's right. Look at this vintage. Then it'll be vintage. All right. Then it'll be vintage. Right. And we sell packs at
Yeah.
reasonable prices and we compete with whatever the heck the new online sales platform is. Then it'll probably be in a Google lens connected to our eyes or,
Exactly. We
just
tapped in
a
like the
space.
Matrix.
Yeah. A space where people can come enjoy all of the hobbies in the cardboard collecting space. I can show off my stuff and, um, not have to worry about making money off it and just make it be
Yeah.
about the hobby and the people who want to enjoy it and bring kids in. And so, yeah, I'd love to do that in retirement. Now, my wife keeps telling me, she's like, owning a business isn't when you retire. And she's right. She's right. She's right. She
Well,
keeps me
perhaps it's
grounded.
doing more of what you love.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we can call retirement, doing more of
Yeah.
what you love, right?
There you go.
Or brings you joy. Now,
Yep.
I'll be having Rob from RNG Games on next week. He runs a store out of New Jersey. He's been, sharing his experience through YouTube for quite some years, and you watch others as well. And I also go to the local card shop. I just went yesterday. For matter of fact, it was Pokemon Friday. It's what we do
Nice.
every Friday. So if the kids do well, they do good in school, get good grades, then we always celebrate. We go out to eat, and we do Pokemon on Fridays. So I usually
So
stop at the
awesome.
local card shop. And to your point, it's not competitive pricing. I kind of know what he gets it from distribution, and I want him to make a profit margin. But I'm also
That's
like,
right.
hey man, let's do this price. That way, you still get something. I can get a decent price, and I want to give you the money versus going to a Target or to Walmart.
Yeah.
But it's hard, and I've mentioned this I think to Dan. Shout out Dan as well. Catch 'em all collectibles. He may be here with us today. I'm not sure, but it's definitely changed. The distribution model through the pandemic changed. There was a couple of comments, I think, even from, I don't know if it was from Jim Mint on Next TCG on that podcast, but I was watching a couple recently, and they talked about how things shifted through. No, actually, it was Rob. It was Rob at RNG Games. He talked about how it shifted during the pandemic, because before that, they gave it at a more fair price. Obviously, as it went through the pandemic, the allocations got really low. They had to really be careful how they handed those out. And then, of course, the price was going to be a little bit higher than it typically was.
Right.
And then I think some left the pandemic and said, whoa, we can make some profit margins. And this is Rob's words, not mine.
Yeah.
But hey, we can make some of those extra profit margins. Why not just keep doing that? And then never went back for some of those distributors. And that makes it very tough. And then you add into the fact, at least from my point of view, where Pokemon is now distributing to Amazon and some of the big players, and it's like, well, okay, now it's changing the game a lot. And of course, they're going to have more purchasing power than a local card shop. And
That's right.
I worry that those will start to fade away because they just can't be competitive. And other than going there and doing your local play, which is really the benefit, and having some of those perks like those theme decks, getting some of the Pokemon play cards, of course your local points for regionals, those types of things are good. But I think they're going to struggle. And I'll talk more about this with Rob and see what his perspective is. But I hope it changes, because if they keep going down the path of the big box retailers, I think it's going to make it really hard for these local card shops.
Yeah, and it breaks my heart, and like my hat's off to them. And it's just, Yeah, it's just sad. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember as a kid, we had a local card shop right down the road from me, and my grandma would take me all the time, and it was just awesome. You knew the guy, he walked in, hey
Yep.
Ryan,
Exactly.
knew what I was. It
Yep.
was just such a
Exactly.
fun and awesome experience, and I hate the fact that it's getting harder and harder every day for that crew. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hope it changes. Yeah.
me too.
For the
Me
positive,
too.
that is. For the
That's
positive.
right. That's right.
Um, maybe more on a upbeat note, going back to some of the stuff that you resell, and also even touching maybe a little bit on the graded stuff. I know when I watched some of the early stuff, you said you would not probably sell things, and I think there was even a comment where you said, if I'm homeless, I'll be out there holding my sports cards, shivering in the cold, if I
Yes,
remember
I definitely
correctly.
said that. That's
Yeah,
right.
something close to that.
Yeah.
And but I'm still curious. Are you maybe selling off some of your graded cards? Obviously, the resales on the non-gradable, raw cards make sense. But are you also selling some things here and there to kind of fund other areas? And are you using eBay? What's kind of been your approach in terms of reselling some of your collection?
Yeah, we have been. We don't sell a ton. If I send a
Okay.
couple off, my last submission, I got some dupe tens, and we'll sell those to recoup so we can continue to, fund the old Pokemon coffers. But I don't sell a whole lot. If I
Okay.
buy something, I love it. And that's kind of like the video that I did the other day where I was talking about index funds, right? I was like, the problem is I buy something with the intent to sell it because I'm like, okay, listen, I know that I can buy this, I can flip it, but then it comes back in that freaking PSA 10 holder and I fall in love with it. And I'm like, no, I got to keep it.
Let's put that
And
over here on the shelf.
that's right. Yeah, the shelf just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So we do sell on eBay every so often. We've got a little eBay store on there that
Okay.
we sell, and we do that, but not a ton. I
Not a
mean,
lot.
maybe a couple cards a week. Yeah, we just haven't really gotten into it.
Okay.
I'm such a pack rat. I'm such a collector. Like it's
It's
hard
it's
for me to
it's
let
uh,
go of things.
it's a shared feeling for sure, Ryan. I got back some PSA submissions recently of some old vintage stuff, and I think it's beautiful. And I get it back and I look at it, and I bought it for the purpose of selling it, and I graded it for the purpose of selling. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll keep this one right here. I'll just put this one on this side. These I can sell, but I'm going to keep that one. I'll put that to the side.
I'll
Yeah,
probably
but
I will I'll probably sell some here relatively soon. Some of the duplicate kits that I got. We're always like I said, we have a couple irons in the fire in a couple different spaces. So sometimes we
yeah,
pull from one to push in another, and
yeah.
so we'll probably let go of some, but nothing you see behind me. All this stuff behind me is stuff that I've said off limits. No, not going anywhere.
Put the red tape on it. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Ryan, good to see you. Thanks for joining us here in the chat today. So nothing wrong with collecting and keeping some special cards. That's
I
right.
agree with
That's
you,
right.
Ryan. Strong name
Yeah.
too.
No correlation, of course. Just a side note. Just a side
Love
note.
it. Love it.
What is that? Just poke a little bit more on that topic. What is the key selling point for you? Is it just when they reach any certain values, or you kind of have those duplicates only, and you have those kind of set aside and say, when I want to pull from the pool, I'll grab from that? Or do you have any triggers that really say, okay, when it reaches this point, then I'll sell X, Y, or Z?
I'm a terrible example for this because I
Okay.
don't really have any set triggers. Really it just comes down to duplicate. That's because I've done it long enough in the PSA space to know that even when I think I know what's going on, I really don't know what's going on, right? And so there have been times where I've thought, hey, man, I can take some cash off the table, and then I can sit on the sidelines, and then, I can reinvest later at a lower price point. And I've never done it, but I've thought about it, and almost every time it hasn't worked out in my favor. So, I guess what I really, really like is just the duplicate side of things. And I'm keeping them because I would love to set up a table at one of these collecticons. I really
I was
would.
going to ask you about
And
that.
that's what I would
Yeah,
like to do. So I'd like to do it. I love the Pokemon community so freaking much. Like it is
that's
almost
great. Yeah.
irrational how much I love everybody who's in this hobby. You talk about one of the big differences between sports cards and the Pokemon hobby. Like every single person in this space is amazing. Like sports cards is so much of a business, and this is such a pure hobby where we care about each other. Hey, you're an investor, that's awesome. Hey, you're a collector, that's cool. You like binders, I like PSA slabs. Guess what? We still love
Yep,
each other, right? Like
exactly.
it is such a cool community. And even if I don't make any money I just want enough cards so I look like I know what I'm doing to put on a table and to be able to sit there and shake hands with people and to put up a little PikaPikaPapa banner and hopefully meet some like-minded individuals. So that's kind of in the background what I'm thinking about doing. We got one coming to Orlando in February. So
so you're not
maybe
coming to Charlotte then?
I am coming to Charlotte. I'm coming as a spectator. Yeah, heck yeah, man. I'll be there.
All right. Well, we'll catch up then. I'm living about 15 minutes from Charlotte.
That's awesome. No, we're going to road trip up. My birthday's a week before that. So the wife was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to go to Collecticon. So I'll be there.
It's not September the 3rd, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Why, is that you?
That's mine.
7th, so we're not far off. So I mean,
all right. Good stuff, man. Yeah, we'll definitely have to catch up while you're there. I'll be hanging out with some of the Pokemon community as well. So I'd love to catch up with you and just hang out for a little bit and say hi, man.
Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I was going to go this year as a spectator. My goal is to take the kids and just have a good time, but also do a little bit of recon. Next year, I would like to sell. So next year, my goal is to go out there and have a couple of tables at a couple of different events. But this year, I'll just go and learn and try to absorb as much as I possibly can. Hey,
man, maybe next year we'll go halvesies on a 6-table section or something, and we can do a Pokemon Wonder and a PikaPikaPapa booth and blow it up.
Knock it down. Watch out, Dan. We're coming after you, buddy.
That's right.
Dan and Rusty and all the big ones, we're going to come after you guys. We're going to bust out our personal collection to do it. Just not the shelf behind you, that's all.
No, not.
Let me ask you this. One of the things I don't hear too much from your videos is where do you typically distribute your investments? Obviously, Pokemon is a part of that. Sports cards sounds like it's still also a part of that. You're doing all the typical, 401ks and Roth IRAs and that kind of stuff as well. What's kind of your overall investment plan and path?
Yeah, great question. A question that I don't think is asked enough in this space. So I appreciate you asking that. Believe it or not, my sports card and my Pokemon collection, like that's 0% of my retirement plan. It could all go to zero someday, and it's not going to deviate our plan at all. It's not going to stop us from having our not-for-profit Pokemon card shop. Obviously I'd be crushed, but there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of risk in this space, and everybody needs to understand that whenever they're in it. Nobody's more bullish on it than I am. Obviously I'm putting money into it, because I'm bullish on it. But I always take care of the other stuff first. We max out our Roth every single year. We make sure you match his contribution into your 401k. HSAs are a big fan. I'm a big fan of that. Triple tax deferred. So I mean, we do that. And then, I'm always a big believer in you should have multiple income streams if you can. If you just rely on your job, then people can take that. A lot of people have experienced that, right? Like I know a lot of really good people who are out there looking for jobs. So, we have a couple businesses that we run on the side here, and, we're always trying to grow that, invest in that. And so we got a lot going on. And then PikaPikaPapa. I mean, I spend a ton of time on this channel, and it's not for monetary gains. I mean, let's be honest here. YouTube doesn't exactly cut big checks to small channels like mine, and I put a ton of time and effort and research into it. But it's really just because what I said earlier, I love the community, and
same here.
I think there's a need for it, so it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, and I bring that up because it is something I try to re-encourage as well as we go through a lot of the investment topics. And I love to share the numbers. I love to go through the data of Pokemon space and a lot of the positive things we get to say about it. But I always try to also reinforce the fact of this is after I've done everything else.
That's right.
My 401k is maxed out, and we have a savings. We have all the other things taken care of. I have a budget. Those things are done. And then I say, okay, now what about Pokemon? And we have fun. And, the goal right now is quite simple, and just to supply it with the kids and make sure that we can enjoy this hobby together and have our Pokemon Fridays and have a little, dinner or lunch, whatever the case may be. And it starts there. And then we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, but that's really important too, because, a couple bad experiences can really sour you on the hobby. And that's sad. I've seen that happen to a bunch of people who jump in, they put all their eggs in a couple baskets, and then those end up not doing well. And then, people end up walking away sad, and rightfully so. So you just, you got to think it through for sure.
Yeah, I've shared a couple of videos recently. Got scammed a few times. You get those guys who are just trying to make the money. Running the store as well. There's certain things that people steal credit cards and they place fraudulent orders on the website, and then you have to deal with chargebacks and all that kind of stuff. So it definitely happens. And it can put a sour taste in your mouth, but it's not the majority. And most of the time, most people are just stand-up people They just want to get a good product at a good price, and they're happy.
Right.
As long as you provide a
Right.
good service and a smile, that's it. Yeah,
That's right.
it makes it
right.
easy. Makes business
Yep.
easy.
Yep.
Yeah, man. We got a couple of comments here.
Sure.
Appreciate
What
it,
do we
Brew
got?
City. Good to see you. Always love having you back, Brew. Oh, here we go. Going back to our previous topic, Pika and Wonder Booth.
Oh man,
Dream
that
come
would be
true. All
epic.
right.
Hey, now we
Cool.
got to make it happen. It's on the internet. The internet's forever. So
Well, you know what they say about the internet, right? It doesn't lie. So it's
yeah, right.
so now it's the truth. It's gonna happen, guys. Don't worry. Don't worry. 2024, Pika Wonder. Pika
That's
Wonder.
right. I love it. I love it.
Let's dive back a little bit into the grading because I think this is where I don't have a lot of experience, and I love to kind of tap your brain a little bit. Where do you distribute your sports, or perhaps even your Pokemon? Are you going all PSA? Are you trying to go for the BGS Black Label? Are you playing with CGC now that they've changed the labels? Do you pick and choose if it's sports versus Pokemon? What's kind of your perspective on grading, man?
Yeah, I'm in it for the long run, and when you look at the numbers, it's really hard to argue against PSA. And I shared the
I thought
story
you
with
might
how I
say that.
started, right? Like I started, that was the very first slab I ever bought all those years ago. So I'm a PSA homer. I'll say it right now. Like it's hard for me to say some bad things about PSA. And really, when you think about the overall strength and the price appreciation of the cards, I know there's the BGS Black Labels, which obviously those are, they're their
More
own
niche.
animal, right? And then you
Mm.
got the CGC 10s, and they're doing good things. And I always say how much I pull for Beckett. Like some of my fondest memories as a kid was running out to the mailbox and opening it up and looking for that
I have
Beckett
it.
magazine so I could
I still
see
have it.
exactly how much my eggs.
Yeah.
That's so cool, right?
Yeah.
But they just haven't been able to get it right. And I don't think they've recovered from the pandemic when they shut down for all those months. Now, a lot of the companies shut down, but BGS was shut down for much longer than the rest of them. And CGC, I look at their grading data every month, and they're all over the place. They're up and they're down. And
Yeah.
as much of a fan as I am of PSA, I say this all the time whenever I talk about grading companies. I want somebody to challenge PSA. There has to be a number two. Like there's an Apple and a
Mm.
Microsoft, right? Like
Right.
there's McDonald's and there's Burger King. Like we need some other
It's good for
grading
business.
company. It's good for business, and it's
Yeah.
good because it's good for us as consumers. Like because right now
Yeah.
PSA can do whatever the heck they want, pretty much, and they're still going to get their flood of cards. They're still going to grade about 1 million, 1.2 million per month. But I really want somebody to come up and challenge them, and it's going to be, it could be a HGA, right? Somebody who's coming out of left field, somebody who's using AI to grade the cards, take the human element out of it. I don't know. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, I've wondered, especially with Beckett. I mean, I still have a bunch of the old Beckett magazines. That's exactly how I used to check prices because I wasn't on the internet at 7 years old. So
Yeah, it didn't exist back then, right?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get dial up until much later, so that kind of tells you my age. I'm 42, so no hiding it here.
Yeah, 41.
But,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're in the same boat. Beckett was the only way that you can check those prices, and I wanted to see what it was. I had the whole set, and looking at the cards I didn't have and what I needed to spend or save, I should say, in order to go spend those money and then get that card. So, yeah, it was a good time. But I definitely agree. I think Beckett has been interesting from the perspective that they're still around. I mean, kudos for that. They've done a good job at least surviving through this. And their Black Label play, I think, in my opinion, is going to be temporary. I don't think it's going to bring the high premiums it brings today. 10 years from now, I think those populations will rise, and they're going to try to do things to survive, and whatever that means internally. I think there's just going to be some changes there, and I just don't think it's going to hold the same premiums it does today if you're trying to hit that Black Label and sell in the market. And I think PSA has definitely been much more liquid, historically speaking. But again, you can correct me if I'm wrong there, but that's my understanding.
No, absolutely. And, when I first started collecting, BGS 9.5s sold at a premium compared to PSA 10s. The BGS 9.5 gem mints would cost you more than if you wanted to buy a PSA 10 of the same card. And it was fascinating.
What year was this?
Gosh.
Roughly.
2002, 2003, somewhere around there it must have been.
Okay.
But I remember sitting on eBay back then, trying to look everything up, and I couldn't afford the BGSs, and but it's really flipped the script here over the last 20 years. It wasn't long until it was the other way around, but Yeah, the black labels for when I'm submitting cards to get graded. I mean, I think it's 4% of all cards end up with a BGS black label, and then what do you end up with? You end up with a BGS 9.5, and
Right.
that doesn't excite me, right? Like, what am I going to do with a BGS 9.5?
Crack it and send it to PSA.
Crack it and send it to PSA, right? And you're going to check the subgrades if you got the subgrades on the BGS one, and you're going to say, okay, is centering good? Because that's the biggest thing with PSA, right? Anybody who's out there submitting, like, make sure you're centering. You can get away with more on the back. You can get away with a little bit of chipping as long as your centering is spot on. That's the biggest thing that I found after I don't even know how many cards I've submitted at this point. But that's the first thing I check is centering for sure.
Well, that's actually a great segue, because one of the things I wanted to ask you is what is your kind of pre-grading process? What do you go through at a high level? What do you check and kind of look for? And is it different between Pokemon and sports?
Believe it or not, it's pretty much the same process. So I've got a room where I can shut all the lights off, and I've got a blackout curtain, and I've got a high-powered magnifying glass that's got a light ring around it. And I mean, I really go through them. I do. Centering's the biggest thing. I buy them on eBay a lot of the times. So, most of the ones that I get through are not what I was hoping for, because let's be honest, most people who are selling on eBay, they know what a 10 looks like, right? And they're going to submit it themselves. So for me, you kind of got to get lucky, and I've just done it for so long. Like I've got a pretty decent hit rate. But the centering's the biggest thing always. Like I said, that's the first and foremost thing that I look for. It's amazing what you can get away with. It's also incredibly important. So many times people miss, just make sure you get those fingerprints off. And when you put it under that 10X loop with that light in a dark room, you're going to be absolutely amazed at what you see, because that's exactly what the PSA graders do. They sit in a dark room with that, and you look at a card and you think this is crisp and this is clean, but then as soon as you slide it under that, you're like, oh my God, what happened to this poor piece of cardboard?
Was I eating Cheetos at night?
That's right. It's like, what happened to you in your life? I'm so sorry, But hey, listen, I've also been really transparent too. I've worked with a company in Georgia for a long, long time, and it's thorough. I use them as an intermediary, and I know the guy who owns it, and they have former PSA graders on staff there. And so I've got 37 cards that I sent through. They received them on Friday, and they'll look through them. It's a second set of eyes, you know what I mean? And they'll say, hey, listen, these are the 35 or the 37 we think you should send through. They'll send me pictures of them, and they'll say, this is what you missed. And I learn as a at-home grader, because I'll say, oh man, I missed that print dot, or I missed that print line. But it also saves me grading fees on them. And, a lot of people out there aren't a fan of that. But for me, I've used them for so long. I've been in their stores. I've shook hands with the owner. Like, I'm not worried this is some fly-by-night company they've been doing it for 25 years. Find that my turnaround time is better, believe it or not. Like, I just feel like as a bulk submitter, and they have such a history with PSA, that I tend to get favorable turnaround times. And so I mean, I recommend it to everybody. Most people say I'm crazy.
Do you pay more overall? I mean, I know they usually get discounts because they're sending so much in. So does that kind of counteract, and you're paying about the same as you would have paid otherwise? Or
I was about to say, usually it's just about the same. It might be $1 or $2 more here or there. It just depends on the season, but they usually get a discount, to your point. So they charge you exactly what PSA would charge you. You don't have to pay the $99 annual fee for PSA, right, to be a member of their collectors club. So that's something you save as well. But I'm sure they just keep the split. And they should. They're providing a service. Like, sometimes I'm an idiot. I sent through, 42 cards the other day, and I had 14 of them that they sent pictures of, and they're like, "Why would you send these to me, Ryan?" I was like, "I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking."
I was hoping that you and PSA wouldn't notice that.
That's right. But then what happens if it makes it through? What happens? Then I end up in PSA 8 slabs and PSA 7 slabs, and they're not. Yeah. What are you going to do with that? Coasters, right? Nothing. Not a dang thing. You're going to crack them out and give them away at a charity foundation, or, actually I leave them in slabs. I love giving them those away to kids. Kids love those. So
it's actually really good. My kids they get their first slab this year. So they loved it, and they loved it. Of course, they didn't know it was any less or more important, but they just loved the fact that it was encased inside of that. And they put it now on the shelf, and they have it kind of sitting up nice and pretty.
That's so cool, man. Nice. That's awesome. I love that.
Good stuff. We also touched on this a minute ago, but I want to go back to it. You spoke at some point in terms of the sports hobby as you saw grading really become the higher popularity.
Hmm.
So from raw and sports to grading being perhaps the more dominant, especially in the business space
That's right.
and maybe even the collector space. And now you're starting to see that, if I understood you correctly, also in Pokemon. You've seen that transition probably in the past 5 or so years in Pokemon, maybe 10. Whereas before it was probably much more of a role in terms of the overall community, but now it's much more, at least grading to my point of view. Perhaps I'm jaded, but that's what I'm seeing as well. What did you notice in that transition? Again, going back to the infancy of which is where we are in Pokemon. What do you notice in that transition, and what are you trying to catch as you're kind of riding that wave of grading into the, the sunset there?
Well, for me, when I see more interest in grading, that tells me that more people believe in the long-term investability of this, right? Like
Mm.
if you're just collecting to collect, there's nothing wrong with having it in buying. But when you're talking about, sports card, there's a lot of deep pockets in the sports card space, a lot of deep pockets. I mean, I see cards go
Yes.
for millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Single one of them is in some type of slab. And I am not the only one in the sports card circle who is starting to see that Pokemon has some real legs long term. The worldwide popularity,
Hmm.
as much as we want to say about the brand, they've made some mistakes. Of course, they have, like all brands do along the way. Um, but I think that in 10, 15, 20 years, I think the TCG space is going to be just as big as the three ball sports like baseball, basketball, football. Whenever I do those grading videos, I always sum the
Yeah.
baseball, basketball, football, and I compare them to TCG. You were
Yeah.
talking about it in the comments with me, right? Like
Yep.
we saw that last month
We
thanks to
finally
the
were number one,
PSA
I
thing.
think, right?
Right, exactly. We saw that. And a big
Yeah.
driver of that was the PSA Center opening in Japan. And
Right.
so that just got hammered with submissions. Um, but I think when you see a lot of people who are grading cards, I really think that speaks to the overall hobby saying, hey, this isn't a fad. This isn't something that's going to fade. Like we're here for the long run. So for me, that
That's a good
projects
point.
a lot of strength in the hobby for sure.
Okay. And if you compared this and this being Pokemon to where you now know sports is, where would you gauge us to be at this point? Are we still, in terms of the grading progression, are we still really early on, or did this accelerate faster than you anticipated and we're, beyond the 50% mark, for example?
You know, I'm fascinated with how much it's continued to accelerate post-pandemic,
Hmm. Yeah.
which is good. I'm happy with that. We all know that a lot of people piled into the hobby during the pandemic. A lot of people that were in it for probably the wrong reasons, and we've watched them go to the wayside, which is fine. Go chase something else. But I've
Yep.
been fascinated to watch that trend continue, and again, it just continues to excite me. Um, Man, where are we at in regard to where we were at in the sports card space? It kind of reminds me of when I first got into sports cards, to be honest with you. I talked
Okay.
about how that registry, when I first started it, there was 40 of us, and it was we all knew each other, and we would talk on the registry. Now it's built up to 400, right? When you look at the Pokemon space, like people are just starting to get into the grading side of things. And when I talk about how, hey, supply is a big piece of the puzzle, but also demand. Is there going to
Yep.
be more demand in 5, 10, 15, 20 years than there is now? I think that's a resounding yes. And we're going to see more cards because the infancy is 1999. There's going to be a lot of minty 1999s out there that have yet to be graded. They're out
Yep.
there, period. They're just there. So you don't think that these PSA populations are going to stop. You just have to believe and have this conviction that the popularity is going to continue to grow with the pop reports. But it does, honestly, it does. It reminds me a lot of when I first got into the sports cards thing. And that might be something I haven't said out loud yet, but talking through it with you. And that might be why I'm so freaking into it right now.
I mean, you're basically, rewinding the time back almost 15 years or so,
Yeah. I mean,
in
think about
terms
it.
of where
People
it is.
20 years from now are going to look back and be like, oh my gosh, can you believe that we
You
used to be
had
able to
a
pick up these cards for
shadowless base set.
XYZ? That's right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you were picking up shadowless commons for $25, $30 each in PSA 10. Yeah, I was,
Hmm.
and
And I hear those stories now. I listen to a lot of the people who's been in the Pokemon hobby, and they say
yeah,
exactly the same thing. I was listening to Gem Mint in the Next Gen podcast, and so yeah, I bought this shadowless Charizard or whatever it was for like $140. It's like
yeah, yeah. It's
140
crazy, isn't it?
bucks. And of course, that was high. That was double market price for him back then. He didn't want to
That's
buy it
right.
at that point. And of
Yeah,
course, now it's multitudes, much more than that. So,
yeah. But we're
yeah,
still there for so much of the product. We really
yeah,
we're still there for so much of it. I mean, when you think about the Pikachu cards, the Mewtwo cards, like the Charizard cards, like all of the ones that we talk about that are the highest popularity ones. You can still get a lot of these in, the first couple years and relatively affordable compared to where they'll likely end 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Especially
It really
if
is.
you step just out of base set and out of jungle and get a little bit out of WotC, and you just step right back into the very next one, whether you're going to E Series or
That's right.
Skyridge, you get into those and it's very affordable. And I think that's going to change a lot in the next 10 years.
Yeah, E Series and Skyridge I think they are
I love that.
so undervalued. And I love those cardboards.
Beautiful
I think they
cards.
are absolutely stunning. So yeah,
it's one of my favorites. Skyridge is one of my favorites.
Yep.
How do you see the pop reports now? We talked about it in the very beginning. We kind of joked a little bit, and we kind of pointed at the fact that popularity is a big missing number in this. But for you as an investor and a collector, are you looking at pop reports before you make decisions in your numbers, of course, as which card you're going to buy, or are you more going for the card and its potential projection outside of the pop report?
It's funny. I start with the cardboard and the art that's on it, and then I'll go to the pop report second.
You still look.
Okay. I still look. I always look. It's just part of who I am. Yeah,
it's ingrained in you from the sports hobby.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. But I mean, you think about a card like I don't know, maybe like a Skyla, right? The one from Shining Fates. Like I think that card like checks all the boxes from the hey, it's got the look, but then you go to the pop report and it's got like I don't know 2,500 in PSA 10. I sent 3 of them through to get graded in my last submission. And you might be saying, well, that's a real high population report. There's tons of Shining Fate, like all these reasons why it shouldn't. But at the end of the day, like I think it checks all the right boxes that the popularity in the future, again, way in the future, of the artwork is going to outweigh whatever the population report ends up being. So I always start with the artwork and then I go to the population report for sure.
Okay. What turns you away? If you look at that, you say, I like the artwork, I like the card, but then you see this on the pop report. Does something there turn you away? Is there a trigger that you would say, no, you know what, I'm going to step back?
Yeah, I always look at the PSA 10 versus PSA 9 percentage. You know what I mean? If I see that a card, so if I see that 70% of all the graded cards came back in PSA 10, then I always take a step back because I'm thinking, whoa, like these cards, they're too easy to get in PSA 10. And that leads me to believe that there's going to be a ballooning of the population report beyond what I think that the demand will be, because there's got to be some scarcity to it. We talk about the print quality, here in the US and how it's terrible. I want it to be a little bit better, but I don't want it to be on Japan's level. I really don't, honestly. Like
they've slipped a little bit
I don't want it
recently.
to be that high. Yeah. Have they?
Yeah, a little bit with Obsidian Flames, well, their version of that, which was, what was it? I forget the one with the Charizard on the front. But I've heard some horror stories of the first couple of runs of those were just not anywhere what they expected, and of course everybody was expecting that to be just the same quality we've always been getting from Japan. Yeah. But it actually dropped a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I even saw your video, I think today, on the Black Star promos, and you're exactly right. I mean, those things, they're so hard to get without being jammed in the plastic and dinged and messed up corners. But they're such beautiful cards. And I absolutely, one of the things I thought about doing in my collection, ironically, when I watched your video today was, do I just focus on the promos? Because it seems to be like a great recap of every series.
Yep.
And that would be a really beautiful way just to kind of encapsulate things like, this is Sword and Shield, this is Sun and Moon, this is, so. And I would love to do that, but there's so many cards that are not there. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm going to have to get that set. Then I'll have to get that set. So no, I'll just keep going. I'll just include those in my set collections.
I do, though. I don't think about, I've done a couple different videos on the Black Star promos. I know I talked about the Evolution Premium Collection boxes that were out there, the Jolteon, the Flareon, the Vaporeon, you know what I mean? And I like Black Star promos. I really do. I like everything about them. I think that they're just such a cool and unique part of the hobby, and the fact that you only get them in these boxes and you can't find them in, booster boxes, and you're not going to pull them out of ETBs. I just think it's a cool little niche that Pokemon has. And I think in the long run, I think they're going to do really well. I honestly do. I'm super bullish on that segment.
I would love to know the perspective of the numbers to say, okay, well, if you had to take the Moonbreon, how many Moonbreons are there versus one of these Black Star promos, like your Umbreon that you always bring up?
Right.
So, like, what's that population between the two of those? I would love to know that. So I'd be curious if it was far lower or they still have them at some of an even level, and they just distribute those many, collection boxes out around the world, and we just don't know it. But
Yeah,
it
that'd be
definitely feels
fascinating.
smaller. Yeah, it definitely
That's
feels
right.
smaller.
But because the Moonbrow's such a tough pull, right? So
Yeah.
even, you know what I mean? So even if there's far less of the, black promos in the boxes, but the fact that the Moonbrow's such a tough pull, it could be somewhere right around the same. I don't know. It's great.
Yeah, exactly right, Ryan. They need to treat those with better care for sure. I mean, it's better than it used to be. If you look back at some of
Right.
the XY and the earlier series, it was brutal. I mean, they crammed them in there with such like a little notch, and so that
Yep.
you couldn't fit the card in there without just forcing it through the notch. At least
Yep.
now they have those little plastic backings, and you can kind of pull it off, and it just kind of falls out.
Yep. Yep.
Maybe it's okay, but everything from the XY era was just tough. It was really tough.
Yeah, that premium trainer box is something that I covet.
Did you end
I
up
don't know.
opening yours?
No.
No. Okay.
I waffle. Do you open it? Do you keep it sealed? Like, it's such a risk reward thing, and I am a risk taker. I have no problem taking risk. But no, keep it sealed.
No, okay. I know I watched your video on that one as well, and it was a great recap because it definitely had the value in it, and especially if you could hit a couple, at a good quality, you were set. It was good, and
That's
then the
right.
rest of it was just free.
That's right.
If you missed that, and the chances of you missing it were probably pretty high.
That's
It's
right.
like, no,
I'm really a coward at heart. I'm okay to say that.
Tell me now your perspective, Ryan, on population report accuracy. I know it's probably been a big thing in sports. I'm sure cracking and regrading's been around since the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously turning those labels in and getting them removed from the population reports probably isn't the most common practice. I think for those of us that care about the population report would do that.
Yeah.
But many people don't even think about it. They didn't even know it's a thing. So what is your thoughts on accuracy on the population reports?
So since I'm such a PSA guy, I don't see a lot of people cracking PSA to sub BGS or sub into CGC. But what you will see is you will see people who will crack and try and grade up. If I got this really, really great looking 9, I don't understand why I got a 9. People will crack it up and they'll send it in and try and get a 10. So I think the PSA 10 population, which for most cards, that's what I'm looking at right there. I feel like the PSA 10 population is pretty darn accurate. Now, people might crack and try and resub for a CGC 10 pristine or a black label, but I just don't think it happens that often.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is everybody else except for PSA's terrible numbers.
Yeah, I crack all. I mean, I shouldn't admit this, but I do. I crack all the time. I buy other companies and I crack them. I did a video. I cracked 4 of them the other day, right? Yeah. And I sent them all through, and all of them came back PSA 10s. And I bought them.
Oh, nice! Congrats, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. I mean, I bought them for less than 50% of the PSA 10 price, and I've cracked lots of slabs in my day. And I hate to. I haven't sent the labels through to get them taken out, which is bad.
Yeah, I have a few that I was gonna crack and regrade, and my thought was I'll do it at the end of the year. I'll save everything up in an envelope. I'll ship it out at the end of the year and just get those removed from the population report. But it's not something I do very much. If I see a really good steal, I'll try to do it, especially across grading. But I would agree. It's probably less of an issue within PSA 10. It's a really good point because not many people are going to crack this for something else.
Right.
Yeah. Good point. So we'll transition a little bit to one of your favorite topics, and that's going to be Pokemon Center ETBs.
Oh man, I love them. I do. I love them. Maybe it's a fool's errand, but I do love them.
I mean, for me, the thing that set that apart was the stamp promo. It was we had Pokemon Center ETBs prior to this. I didn't see that much of a special differentiation between them and the price points, other than having it as a display piece, which is one thing, and of course that has value. But as far as the contents, I think it really changed when that promo came out, and I think we haven't seen enough time pass by. And your past analysis where you were looking at ETBs and booster boxes and kind of watching that trend, I think you do it every quarter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, every quarter.
And okay, and it didn't look too good for ETBs, but I don't think enough time has passed because it just started with Scarlet and Violet. So I just kind of want to hear your thoughts and where do you see that going in the next 5 or so years if they continue?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of my love of the Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes is this unfounded belief that there are fewer of them in circulation than there are of regular Elite Trainer boxes, right? Like when I think about
Yeah.
regular ETBs, you pick those up at Target, Walmart, all kinds of big box stores, right? If you want a Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer box, you're either getting it from the Pokemon Center or you're going to have to go and get it on eBay. Plus the
And
fact
pay
that
double.
then play double, right? And the
Yeah.
Pokemon Center, we live in the US, so we kind of think that everybody has access to it, but a big portion of the collecting world doesn't.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so there's exclusivity in that as well. So I think the reason that I'm so bullish on them in the long run, and again, to your point, we need more time. Like they've got to get off the Pokemon Center. If they don't get rid of Fusion Strike off the Pokemon Center here pretty soon, I'm going to lose my mind. We need them to sell out so we can see what they're capable of. Darn it, But I don't know. Maybe they just have warehouses of the stuff sitting there, and they're laughing at PikaPikaPapa, going, "You fool! You think there's less of these? Guess what? You wrong."
Send out more. He's still buying them. Send them out. Send them out,
Right,
guys.
that's right. I do. I've got closets. Man, Brilliant Stars came off the Pokemon Center for like 2 days, and when it came off, I was like, "Oh my god, I gotta buy more!"
Finally.
And finally, you know what I mean. So I did. I bought a couple more on eBay while they were still like as soon as it dropped off, I could still get them for a little below MSRP on eBay. So I bought more, thinking this is the time. Brilliant Stars is
Here
the
it
2 or 3
comes.
set. Here it is.
Wah, wah.
Nope. Wah wah.
Do you differentiate those from the Scarlet and Violet era
For
because
sure.
of the promo? Yeah.
For sure, because of the promo
'Cause-
card. And think about how quickly they've been selling out. I mean, look at Crown Zenith even. Crown
Yeah,
Zenith,
that's when I
Crown
started.
Zenith
Yeah.
has been gone
It
ever
never
since
came
it
back.
came out. It never came back.
Yeah.
Now I
But
know the
and
Crown Zenith is going to flood back into the market here to come holiday season, which we talked about possibly happening. I think both
yeah,
you and I kind of saw that coming. But I don't know if the Pokemon exclusive ETB is coming back.
I want to see. I mean, for me, I think this is going to be the first holiday season where they're introducing that. The Crown Zenith didn't have a special promo,
No,
right?
it did not. Nope,
So it was Scarlet and Violet was the first set.
that's right.
So it was a Scarlet and Violet base. So this will be the first time that we've now seen this Pokemon Center ETB come out, and then we hit a holiday season.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm curious what's going to happen because I think that's going to determine if they're going for the cash grab or if they're going to keep this as a collector's item.
Yep.
I think they're going to keep it as a collector's item because not one of those, once they've sold out, and you've seen a small blip here and there, maybe a couple of sales for a few hours, but they get sold out very quickly. And they're just not back. I check every couple of days. I just look at every set from Scarlet and Violet and say, okay, do we have any ETBs left?
Yep.
They have not put them
I
back
check
in.
every morning. Hand to
Yeah.
God, every single morning. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter where I'm at in the country. Every morning I'm looking at the Pokemon Center around 6 o'clock,
It's not
7 o'clock,
back.
8 o'clock, and just see if it's there. The Scarlet box popped up a couple weeks ago, and I bought another case of it. And
Oh,
it
good,
sold out.
good.
It sold out within another 48 hours, right? It was gone. I mean, you look at it,
Yeah, it doesn't
and
stay.
I've used the comparison in the past to the sports card space. In the sports card space, you have retail boxes and hobby boxes.
Okay.
Your hobby boxes have more exclusive hits. They have a better hit rate. In sports cards, they actually tell you the odds. The odds of pulling
Oh, really?
whatever Ultra Plasm, whatever, is 1 in 45 packs or 1 in 68 packs or whatever.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they do anymore, but they certainly did like 5 or 10 years ago. But the hobby versions always had a better pull rate. You can only get them in LCS shops, and I just think Pokemon has probably seen the success of those hobby boxes. I mean, they sell for such a premium, and especially when they're sold out. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. I mean, you should always learn from people around you, and if Pokemon's not learning from the sports card space, then they're missing out.
Well, and I've said it to you in the comments a few times. Pokemon's ability to navigate business is amazing.
It is amazing.
They're really, really good at what they do. And I've seen, Tektra again at next TCG podcast. He's a gamer, and so his background is just streaming and gaming. And he sees, of course, a lot of advancements and things moving quickly. And he looks at the Pokemon space, and he often, at least from what I hear, he's somewhat frustrated that they're not taking those risks. The serialized cards and this and that. And I'm thinking, well, I think that this is part of what's helped them stay so strong. And I think either you or somebody else made the same comment before as well. When you're on top, you don't need to take all that risk. They're number one.
No,
they're number one. So why would they pull out those cards out of the back pocket when they don't need to? Now, if they're trying to save the company, they're in dire need, maybe they'll do something like that. But I think they're playing it just right on the edge. They're keeping us, and I was wondering during the pandemic and even really during last Christmas if they were just holding supply back or what the issue was, because I know they bought that print center. It was actually in North Carolina. And ironically, I was looking at some things, and it was very close. So I was quite surprised.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if they were holding back. Was it just transition? I know acquisitions of companies are not easy, and it takes years to really settle down and get a proper organizational structure through two different companies. And so I was wondering, okay, well, they're struggling there. I get that. I understand. But, they still have the existing facilities where they're holding back. But I definitely think they've walked that line and been able to keep enough people on the TCG side interested, the collector side, the investor side, the video games, the plushies, they've done an amazing job. The movies, we watch the cartoons every week. Every Saturday,
that's true. Yeah.
Once a month, we buy a Pokemon movie, and eventually I'll have them all. But we buy one every month, and we watch it, and as a family. So we just love it. Yeah. So they're doing a great job, and I think that's why. I think they don't have to, they don't need to. They are navigating. They're picking up a small few pieces here and there. They're adding those in and kind of testing the waters and watching to see how it plays out. But they're definitely not taking massive risk and having to jump the needle that far, because there's no need.
Yeah. Well, and what would they do if they had serialized cards and then all of a sudden, for the game, they needed to do a reprint? What are you going to do? Like your reprint is going to have no serialized cards in it, or say it's really, really tough. That's the thing about the sports card space, right? Like there's one print run. That's it. That's what you get.
Oh, really?
Those are the cards. They're stamped, because they have the serialized cards in there, right? Like the cards are numbered at 1 out of 99. There's 1 of 1. There's 1 of 250. My gosh, there's so many different ones right there. Yeah. So that's it. That's all they can have. And Pokemon does such a great job of making sure everybody in the hobby has what they need to enjoy.
Have a little something.
And I like that. And people sometimes question me. They're like, oh, you're big into the investing side of things, but I'm about the hobby. You know what I mean? Like if more people enjoy the hobby, more people are going to get in it. There's going to be more demand for the card. So at the end of the day, Lost Origins got restocked, or Brilliant Stars got restocked. Like I'm fine with it. Like we need to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Those sets are still going to do what they're destined to do no matter what. And if you're looking at what they did over the last 3 months, then who cares? Like you got to broaden your horizon. You got to look longer than that, for sure.
Well, and I think you and I both spoke to it in a couple of our videos. Restock means time to buy. If you're an investor, if you're looking at that, it's hey, we're going to get something at a good price. Great.
That's right.
Thank you.
Darn right. That's right. Because we've already seen the market supports it at $160, $170, right? So why not pick it up now, knowing that it's going to be there?
And if you look at that in comparison, just in terms of trends on the stock market, and you say, oh, we had this terrible time in 2018. Okay, we did. And you see the dip, but then now look at 2023. And so you see it, little dip, and it's still straight up.
That's right. It's crazy.
So those things over, again, decades, are you can't even see them. You have to zoom in. You have to zoom in to see what happened at that point in time. Otherwise, if you step back, it just looks like a gradual line. Yeah. Not saying that's what Pokemon's going to do forever, but I definitely think, back to your previous point, we will probably have a flat period at some point. I don't know when. I feel, and I talk to the local card shops. I talk to a lot of people in the community. It's just growing. I mean, nobody's sales is slowing down. When I played at the regionals here in Charlotte, it was, again, my numbers are quite off here, so I probably tell 2 different numbers on 2 different podcasts, but I think it was something like 1,800 in the Masters division. Was how many people were there in Charlotte to play a TCG game. And I couldn't believe it. The way it looked for you on Collecticon when you kind of showed over that video over the edge. It was the same or worse for the TCG regionals. It was amazing. I loved it. So I don't see it dying down. I see it growing.
Me neither. I really don't. And I see more people like me who will transition from the sports card space. I mean, it's just a hot pile of mess over there. So
to be honest, it's more fun. I mean, for me, sports cards were fun to collect, but that's where it ended for me. That's where it stopped, and that's fine. No big deal. But here, I got collecting, I got investing. I'm playing with my kids. I'm getting beat downstairs in TCG games. My sons, I trained him too well. Pat's on back for me.
100%. I love it.
My wife jokes at me. She says, "You can't win anymore." I said, "Well, that just says I'm a really good teacher, sweetheart."
That's right. There you go. That's right. It's fantastic.
But the point there is there's so much to enjoy,
Uh-huh.
and we're all in. So yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Talk us through your perspective, Ryan, on analysis. I think you have a unique way of looking at the numbers. You break things apart. You often try to take out the top and bottom sections and kind of look at that middle section. But then you don't necessarily negate it. You still understand the data that's there. What's your typical approach, and why do you take that approach for data analysis? It's quite different.
Yeah, so I think just circling back on kind of that little saying that I said earlier, right? Like data doesn't tell you what to do; it tells you where to look.
Right.
And I say this all the time, like you work hard for your money, I work hard for my money. Like everybody who's out there, I don't care if you're buying packs or boxes or one of one PSA 10 slabs, like you're spending money in this hobby and you should feel good about it. And when I think about the analysis, I'm always looking for trends and I'm trying to use the data at my fingertips. And now at this point, I've been doing it long enough. I have these spreadsheets that are built out and it's really cool to go back and I just update it, right? So now I just updated a whole bunch of them this month, but I can see how they performed all the way back in mid 2022, and so we can start to see how it's tapered off and see, we did it was really one of my favorite videos was where we looked at cards that were number one in a set 2 years ago and where are they now. And it was fascinating that the number one chase cards, how they've changed. Some of them dropped down to 8, some of them dropped down to 2. Like it was really cool. And that gives us this macro level view of, hey, what's hot now isn't always going to be there. Like you don't want to buy what's hot, buy what you feel like is going to be hot in the future. If you're in this for investing, if you're in the thing, collect what you love, that doesn't matter. But if you're trying to do both, you got to find the trend before everybody else does, because there's a lot of smart people out there, a lot of people a lot smarter than me who are doing the same thing. So any little tip or trick, or hey, I always say you got to play chess when everybody else is playing checkers. You didn't think you're going to get through this call without me saying that, right?
I was hoping. I was going to ask you to do it if you didn't.
I had to find the time to drop it in there. So I do. And what you guys see on my channel is a fraction of what I do behind the scenes. And I always try and do a ton of back testing. I always try and check the numbers twice. Doesn't mean I'm not going to make mistakes. I have. But I take a lot of responsibility before I put something on a slideshow, before I get it in front of anybody. I know that my voice is super small in this polka tuber space, right? Nobody watches PikaPikaPapa, but someday maybe somebody will. And so, I always do a lot of data validation. And again, it's always about 80% on the why, 20% on the what. And take a lot of pride in that. So yeah, my data analysis is super unique. And the top cards are going to do what the top cards are going to do. I've always felt that way. I've always seen that in sports cards too. The top cards are going to perform how they're going to perform, but how the set in general performs, a lot of that comes from the meat and potatoes, those middle cards right there. That tells me how sealed product is going to do in the long run, and some of these ancillary products as well. So that's why I focus so much on that. It's easy to sit here and say, well, look at all the alt arts from Sword and Shield, right? They're all under a lot of pressure right now, and those are a lot of the big chase cards out there. I think only the Giratina is doing okay, but outside of that, a lot of them are under a lot of pressure. But when you start peeling back the onion, right, you start to look at some of the middle cards in there, there's still a lot of strength out there in the hobby. So it's important to get a holistic view of the whole thing and not just focus on those top couple cards.
Do you find yourself spending, as you said before, now you have a lot of it already built out and you're just kind of updating some things and you're not necessarily, building the foundation, but as you were starting that journey, are you spending weeks in your research? How long is it taking you to put that together? Just curiously, because I know there's a lot of work behind it, because I've done some similar work, but not the same. And a lot of, tedious research and spreadsheets. And as you said, going through the numbers and, hey, that doesn't make sense. Why does it look like that? And
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
How much time have you put behind some of that? Just a couple of examples there.
I think if I tried to add it up, I would be depressed. I think I'd be depressed. My biggest advantage is this, and I said it earlier. I travel all the time for work. Okay, and so if I have a 2.5-3 hour plane ride somewhere, I'm on TCG Player while I'm on the plane, or I'm on polkadata.io, and I've got my spreadsheets pulled up. And then when I get done with work for the day and I go back to the hotel room at night, like, I'm an old man. I'm not fun. I'm not cool. Like, I don't have anything to do. So what do? I go and I sit in my hotel room. I'm not stealing time from my family. So I'm crushing, Pokemon spreadsheets, and I'm learning and I'm leveling up myself. And I'm hoping to share what I learn and share the work that I do with the community. My video, I spend hours and hours and hours on every video, and I'm happy to do it. I enjoy it. Like, I'm a data nerd, so it's cool. But yeah, it's probably my biggest advantage, and do it while I'm on the road and not take time away from my family. So
Yeah. Yeah, travel definitely gives opportunity. I did a lot of international travel historically, and those international flights, like you're either watching movies or you're getting work done.
that's
And
right.
man, it was a great time for me just to accelerate. Everybody else is sleeping, and I just
Yep.
spent 13 hours, on across the country, getting about 3 or 4 days ahead of everybody else. So it was good stuff, man.
Yeah, time's our most precious commodity, and what we choose
It
to do
is.
with it, you can either level yourself up, you can stay flat, or you can take a step backwards. And
Right.
it's kind of one of my
Or doing
biggest
nothing
faults,
goes
or
backwards
doing
as well,
nothing.
right?
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. Is
Yeah.
I'm always trying to think of, my brain doesn't let me rest as much as it should. I'm always thinking of what I can be doing, what can I be getting fingers and toes into. I've started and closed more businesses than we have time on this channel to discuss, but it's because I'm always looking for opportunity out there, man. Like, the world's there for the
I figure
taking. You
you're a
gotta go
guy who
after it.
sleeps probably 2 or 3 hours a night. I
Not
can see
many,
it, man.
not many,
I
man.
can see it.
Not many.
Well, good stuff, Ryan. I think we also touched on just, I think, two of those. You mentioned Pokedata.io. You mentioned a few others. I mentioned TCG Fish.
Mhm.
Any other tools you want to throw out there that you use to kind of help back your data research? What do you typically look at?
Those are the big ones. TCG Player, Pokedata.io, to your point, TCG Fish, Gemrate.com is where I get all of my grading trend data. It's an incredible resource. And what's really cool for me is when I started the PikaPikaPapa channel, the guy who runs that reached out to me via Discord. And if I want him to pull special information, he will, specifically for the
Nice,
channel.
nice.
For example, this month I said, hey, man, it'd be really cool if you could pull PSA grading data by language, because there's all this
Right,
conversation with the PSA center opening up in Japan. Like, PSA numbers are going up. Are
right,
those really more Japanese cards getting graded, or is the hobby as a whole just catching steam right now? I feel like it's more Japanese, but I need to validate that. And this guy runs
right.
this website, and he already does it. So he's going to pull that channel.
Perfect.
And so yeah, that's probably my other big one. And then obviously I go to psacard.com, and that's where I pull all my pop reports and stuff. So
Do you do any of the auctions? Do you use eBay, PWCC, Heritage? Are you leveraging anything that's happening there?
I only use eBay. I am
Okay.
eBay specific. And again, I'm just a creature of it's because I've done it for so long. I
Mhm.
can spend 30 minutes every single morning cruising through my eBay listings, and I'm real quick to hit that buy it now button, or I'm real quick to just I don't wait, which gets me into trouble
See
sometimes.
it, double
But
check it, good price, boom,
that's right.
done.
Centering good, centering good.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me see the back. No back picture. Forget about it. My favorite is when they put a card in one of the playing sleeves and they show the back picture, and the back picture is like of the card sleeve itself. I'm like, come on, man. Then I message them, can you send me a back picture, please? Usually they don't respond. I'm like, dang it.
Yeah.
Card
Yeah.
looks great, but I'm not going to buy it if I can't see the back.
What I do love on that note is that I've been leveraging the PSA photos. They've done a good job giving us some really good high quality photos now, and
That's awesome.
leveraging those photos for the eBay listing has saved a ton of time.
That's awesome.
So
That's
if you're going to
awesome.
sell a PSA card and you've done the grading, grab that one image that's front and back, and it's all in one image. You don't have to have anything else, and
That's a
it
great
makes
tip,
life
man.
easy. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great.
Well, we'll transition now a little bit here to some of the personal side. One of the things I was really curious about, because I was super hyped and definitely rooting you on, is what you were going to do with Pokemon and charity. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that, and how's that going, and what was kind of the original plan, and how's it changing?
Yeah. So that's what I mean, that's what I live for, is giving back. And so it's happening Friday the
Oh,
1st.
nice.
Yeah, we're everything's settled with the Ryan Seacrest recording studio and the Orlando Health Foundation, and we've got 40 kids that are going to be coming downstairs, and we've got all kinds of giveaway items, and the Poke community has been amazing. We've had
That's
people who
super
send
awesome,
us
man.
stuff to donate to these kids, and it's a huge event. It's going to be epic. And it's my daughter was sick, and so that's kind of where this bonding
Okay.
with them all came through. So she was diagnosed with stage 3 liver cancer when she was 16 months old.
Wow.
So we've spent a lot of time over there in that Orlando hospital. And I know what it's like as a parent and as a kid. You just sit in these rooms for days and days and weeks on end, and you never leave. And so having an opportunity to do this and bring them all downstairs and get a little sunshine on their face and stop the beeping and the moaning of the machines and all of that nonsense, and just for an hour to give them some joy, man, like I am on fire. I can't freaking wait to do it. And my hope is that we can do it more regularly. You know, it's we've built, so I just got back from Home Depot before we jumped on this call. Like, so we've got a big I don't know, I'm building this. It's made out of styrofoam, but it's so the kids can fish, and they're going to use the pole and drop the paper clip over. And from Australia, bro, listen, from Australia, somebody sent us a Fusion Strike booster box as a donation.
Nice. That just shows.
Every single one of those packs, and I'm going to give everybody a special shout out when we pull this video, but every single one of those packs is going to end up on the other end of a kid's fishing line, and they're just going to be over the moon with it. And me and my wife, we bought 80 Professor Juniper deck boxes, and we've been saving all of our cards from all the openings you see on this channel, from everything that you see. Like, we've got them all saved, and we're going to make sure everybody gets a big pile of shinies and obviously some commons to play with. So they're going to get a deck box full of cards, and we got a station for coloring, and we got a station for Pokemon tattoos. We're doing pin the tail on the Pikachu. We're going to spray paint some silhouettes of Pokemon, and we're going to say guess the Pokemon.
I love it.
If they guess it right, they're going to get a prize. And I'm telling you, man, we're going to do this to the freaking nines, and it is going to be epic. And my hope is that it's going to continue to grow. And I've done a lot of work with them in the past. I've done a lot of speaking events, fundraisers, and things. And yeah, it's just really near and dear to our heart. We're super passionate about it. So
I love to hear it, Ryan. That's probably one of the best stories I've heard all year. When I heard about you doing that, and I think you released a couple of shorts on it, I just was really stoked, man. So next time when you're getting prepared, let me know. I'll be happy to support and donate and contribute. So love to support any cost like that. So it's awesome.
Yeah. It's cool. And it's just, I don't even know what to say. We're so excited for it. It's happy because the funny thing was I talked about it because the ball was rolling, but we had to get so many different foundations involved, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and more people heard about it. And Ryan Seacrest's studio was like, well, we want to shoot it in our studio and we want to broadcast it. And somebody else is like, well, we can partner the Orlando Foundation and we can provide volunteers. And it just got so big, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing here?
So whoops.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I figured there'd be a ton of like approvals and kind of going through some of the red tape as well, just kind of getting all that organized and getting the proper people to make sure you were doing the right things. And
that's right. And everybody's got to sign their waivers when they come down, because obviously, you know, the beautiful thing is the foundation wants to use the content just as much as I do. I mean, I don't care about using it. That's not what it's about. It's only about putting a smile on the kids' faces. But because the foundation wants to use it, you know, we're going to be able to shoot some really special content and share it with everybody. And it'll be my favorite video ever until the next one.
I can't wait, man. I love the phrase, you know, put a smile on somebody's face, because I was just talking to my friend. I don't know if you're on here, Gerald, but I'm sure you'll watch this later. Gerald's a friend of mine out of Singapore, and so he took a trip to Japan. He said, "Hey man, I'm going to Japan. You know, do you want anything?" I said, "I can't think of anything at the moment. You know, there's things I want, but it's too much money."
So I want every stuff that I want, but you can find, right?
He's like, "Well," I was like, "How much is this?" It's like, "This much money." I'm like, "No, never mind." But I said, "Well, do me a favor, Ryan." I'm sorry, not Ryan, but do me a favor, Gerald. He said, "Yeah, what's that?" I said, "Just put a smile on somebody's face tonight." And so then he kind of gave me a thumbs up, and you know, he texted me back like a couple of hours later. He says, "Hey man, I handed out some packs to some kids here, you know, just walking down the street, and just made them smile, and I did that for you." So I appreciate that, man. So I love to see the kids smile. Love to hand them out. We actually talked to the school here. We started at a new school local to the house. And both kids get to go to the same school this year, so we're super excited because now they can walk in together. And, it was huge. And the teacher mentioned Pokemon. Of course, then my radar ran off. I was like, "What? What'd you say?" Pokemon. And she said, "Yeah, we might use it as an incentive program." I said, "Well, let me know. I got your back. You're talking to the right guy. If you're going to do anything around incentive programs for the kids' education and Pokemon, I got you covered." So I definitely love to help out the community. So echo your support, and definitely you got another friend here if you ever need it, Ryan.
That's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. And there's so many different ways to give back. You know, I think people think of giving back and everybody automatically goes to opening up your wallet. And there's so many things you can do with your time and your effort. And there's people sometimes have a cynical view of the world and where we are today. And obviously the world's changed a lot since you and I were young kids, right? And there's a lot going
Yes.
on, but opportunity every single day to make it the opportunity every single day to put a smile on somebody's face, look at somebody and give them a compliment for no reason, hold a door for somebody, do something
Exactly.
chivalrous for God's sakes. You can make a difference. You can make a difference every single day if you so choose. And
Yeah.
it's a big
I
part
was
of
just
this.
talking to the postal worker, and he was having a hard day, and he kind of shared it with me a little bit. I was dropping off some packages, and I said, "Well, man, if you're looking for it, you'll find it.
Yeah.
So be careful what you're looking for." And he kind of looked at me strange, and I talk to him a lot now because I see him a lot. But he said, "Hey, man, thanks for that. I really appreciate it." And so, for those of you listening, whatever you're looking for, you'll find it. So if it's something good, you'll find it. If it's something bad, you'll find it too, because it's all there.
I love it.
So it just depends on what you're looking for. Yeah.
I love it. Pokemon Wonder dropping freaking knowledge here. I love it, man. It's great.
Well, we did a lot of self-improvement when I first met my wife, 10 plus years ago. So she got me on a path and really changed the trajectory of my life and my career. So anytime I can share those little tidbits and little bits of knowledge and the people that I learned it from, I'm happy to do it.
My gosh, and I'm not exaggerating. I would not be here today if it wasn't for my amazing wife, just like you. I mean, she changed the trajectory of my life, and she has helped me become what I am and continues to help me get better every single day. So,
Exactly.
I mean, it sounds like we're both really blessed guys.
We are. Very much so. And by the way, give Pika Pika Mama a big thank you for letting us have the time here today. We definitely appreciate it. I know we don't do it by ourselves. Yeah.
Not at all, man. She's fighting the kids out there. I can hear it. So it's good. I'm actually happy I'm in here. So.
Well, I won't keep it too many more minutes, but I do have a few more if you don't mind. A few more.
Man. Fire away.
One of the things that you mentioned on one of your first videos was your daughter's collection. You mentioned it again here today. So she said, "Daddy, I want to collect like you." So what's her collection look like today? What does she got? What is she doing now?
So she's all into Pikachu. We've been taking a look, and the funny thing is, she will sit with me, and she's better at spotting high grade cards on eBay than I am now. We will flip through.
Better.
Yeah, much better actually. Yeah, exactly. I'm so old, Thanks, man. Kick me while I'm down.
You see, I got glasses on, buddy.
That's true. Pot calling the kettle.
That's right.
But just like you said with your kids on Friday, you know what I mean? Like I give her a little spending account, and she can buy packs. She can save it and buy bigger products, or if she wants to buy some single cards, like I let her buy some single cards, and then when she gets them in, do you want to send it in to get graded? Do you think it's going to get a good grade? Let's look it out under the magnifying glass. It's going to cost you an extra $20 to get this done. And I mean, she is all in it. Her collection's growing. Of course, Dad throws in a couple extra nickels every now and then if there's something that she really wants done. She's earned it. But her collection's growing. She's got a bunch of cards that are at PSA right now. PSA slowed down significantly. I have 3 submissions that are just kind of chilling there right now. So she's very anxious to get them back. But, I'm proud of the collection that she's building. We talked about focus and time, and she's got a pretty clear focus, and she knows what she's going after. And she's doing great. I appreciate you asking that. Yeah.
So she's a pure Pikachu collector then. She's going all in on Pikachu?
She is for now. Yeah, she's very, very focused on that. I'm trying to get her to pick up some sealed product. I'm like, oh, you should really pick up this Pokemon Center Elite Trainer box. She wants nothing to do with it. She's like, I'm just going to put the box on the shelf. I'm like, yes, and you're going to stare at it, and you're going to love it, and you're just going to think it's the coolest thing ever. And she's like,
she said, "No, Daddy, no. That makes no sense, Dad."
No, she's really into the looking at them online and looking for perfect centering, and
I love that.
She'll spend hours doing that. Yeah.
She'll make a fortune in the future. You've taught her well.
I know she will. Oh my God, she's already got cards she could flip. I'm like, dang girl,
Can Daddy
drop out of second grade. I got a path for you.
And I love how you introduced them to getting the grading cards back, and you kind of sit the family around and open those up yourselves, go through the grades and the revealing. I love the little kids trying to hold the thumb on it and do the revealing. That's great. I love it.
Man.
I love it.
They're like, PSA 10. And then whenever we get a 9, they're like, oh, and we've had a couple, we've had the Charizard, the Palkia behind me. Like, I'm like, no, 9s are okay. Like, a 9 is okay every so often. We don't need to be upset. But they're definitely trained to look for those 10s, and we have a blast with it. The hardest
That's
part
great, man.
me waiting for them to be able to do it. I just want to rip it open as soon as it comes in the mail, but they make me wait every time.
Is the opening experience and those little moments like that how you mainly enjoy Pokemon as a family? Is there anything else special that you guys do together with Pokemon? I think you mentioned you also watch the cartoons as well, and
Yeah, we watch the cartoons, and they're really, my wife's making little PikaPikaPapa merch or whatever the
I love
heck, and
it.
my
Oh, she
girls are
made
all
that?
into that. Yeah, she made this. Yeah, so
Nice,
yeah,
man.
show it off
Nice.
there. Yeah, little PikaPikaPapa. She made this little LED thing behind me.
She made that too. I was
Yeah,
wondering
she
where you
did.
got it from
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
put it in the
yeah.
background a couple months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's into that. As I said, we're always trying to think of what we could do in the future, and
Nice,
yeah,
man.
so we enjoy that. The reveals are a ton of fun. The kids love to open stuff, so we open a lot, not on camera. I try and open the fun stuff on camera, but I'm not one to make my kids wait because I'm trying to get the whole setup done. I'm like, no, kids, just rip it. Have a
Just go
blast.
for it. Just go for it.
Just go
Exactly.
ham. Yeah, yeah. But they
That's the
they
funnest
do
part.
know that over the next couple days, we've got a whole lot of deck boxes that we got to stuff for the kids, and they're excited for that. So I'll probably shoot
That's
a
cool.
short on that, just showing everything in its totality laid out, because it's just the amount of
It's a
stuff we
lot.
have is awesome. Yeah, it's gonna be
I can't wait to see that, man.
really
And it's
fun.
great for the kids to have that experience too, giving back and being part of the community like that. It's really great.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's yeah, she got to be part of a Dunkin' Donuts campaign. They did a golden donut with a little donut hole in the middle, and the local Orlando area asked her to be a part of it, so they took pictures of her, and she was on
That's
billboards and
awesome.
stuff. And yeah, it's cool. It's interesting to see how much she's taken to that, because she doesn't remember a lot of her experience because she was so young, 16 months.
Mm, yeah.
But she's really taken to the whole giving back side of things, and of course my youngest has done the same thing now, so they're going to be with us. They'll be with us, snipping packs to clothes hanger clips and all kinds of stuff. It'll be fun.
Are they coming to the Collecticon in Charlotte as well?
Heck yeah, they are, brother. They'll be
Oh,
there. You should
perfect.
bring your littles.
Oh, they're going to be there.
Awesome.
They're going to. Yeah, they're all going to come. Yeah, so we're going to do it all together. Yeah, so we'll see you there then. We'll see you there.
That's cool, man.
Well, we'll finish up maybe with just two more, and then I have two closing questions that I typically ask if you watched any of the podcasts so far.
Love it.
But one of the things I wanted to know is, what's your goal for the next 1 or 3 years as you kind of look ahead? I know you typically even said at some point you look at even more than that, 5 years out.
Mm-hmm.
But what is your goal for yourself? Are you still focused on the vintage and maybe closing a certain milestone there? What are you looking at in Pokemon?
I'd love to finish out that PSA Shadowless set. I think obviously the PSA 10 complete set is outside of my realm, but I would love to at least close the loop there. I think I'll probably pull the trigger on a PSA 8 Zard. I've been keeping an eye on those, so I think that's probably will be the piece de resistance. I would like to get into some of those Skyridge E-Series cards a little bit more.
Beautiful.
And to be honest with you, I just want to keep leveling up my knowledge. The fact is, I've been doing this for a couple years, and I layer in my sports card, which is, a couple decades. But I just want to continue to learn more about the Pokemon space and continue to do the data dives and continue to hopefully, provide some valuable content that people enjoy. And I don't know. I don't ever set goals for my channel. Like, I never say, hey, I want to get to X number of subscribers, or hey, I need X number of views. I'll go a week without count if I'm being completely honest. I just check the comments on my app and I'll respond to those. But yeah, just kind of leveling up the channel a little bit and seeing where that goes. I think there's a lot of good to be done there, and I would love to build the charity thing as well. Maybe start off at twice a year, then maybe end up doing once a quarter, and then there's a couple, obviously with Orlando right around the corner. There's Nemours, there's Orlando Health. Like, there's a bunch of children's hospitals around here. There's big ones in Gainesville and Tampa, and I'd really love to spread it beyond just the Orlando Health too. So that's always the forefront of what we're trying to do. But from my personal collection, just keep grabbing those Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes, baby.
I missed out on 151. I was really sad. I haven't missed one since Scarlet and Violet, except for 151. I was like, man, how did I miss that?
Well, my mom has a case coming. My wife's dad has a case coming. I have a case coming. My wife has a case coming. So you got the inside guy. And if it ever pops back up, guess what? of them are going to have more cases. My freaking cousin in Virginia, who's probably never heard of Pokemon before, when it launched, I was at Disney World with my family. I called him up. I'm like, listen, you order this case. He's like, what are you talking about? So don't ask questions. You go to PokemonCenter.com. You search for 151. Order 4 of them. Do it now. He did. God love him. He ordered them.
Nice. That's trust right there. That's trust.
That's it. Yeah.
That's right. Just order it. Don't ask any questions. I'll talk to you later.
He's more of a brother than a cousin, but yeah, it was really funny.
Perfect, man. Well, I will ask you this though. If you do see any, I usually get up early. I'm usually like early bird. I do 3 or 4 a.m.
Yep.
It's just what I've always done. So if you see it before me, or vice versa, I'll let you know. But let me know so I can try to grab some at 151.
It's gonna pop up again. You know it. I know it. Like it's just a matter of when. But as soon as it does, it's gonna.
I'm gonna snag something.
Go. Yeah, right. I haven't pulled the trigger on any of the ultra premium boxes yet, to be honest. That's something that I'm kind of waiting on. You know, with the 3 Mews in it.
But they're not exclusive though, right?
They're not, and that's why I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. But those,
I think those will drop.
I do too. I think they're going to put the heck out of them.
Exactly. And going back to our comments on the holidays, I think between that and pretty much everything in Sword and Shield, everything in Scarlet and Violet, and maybe Crown Zenith, they're just going to hit us hard and give us as much as we want. And I think the market can take it, but it should bring some price drops as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're very wise to say that too, that the market can take it. I think there's going to be people sitting there with open arms, just waiting to snap it up. So.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, it's they other than Sword and Shield, other than Scarlet and Violet, these past 3 sets, for whatever reason, and I wasn't going to bring this one up, but you get a lot of negativity with Scarlet and Violet so far from the investor side.
That's right.
It's somewhat neutral. They don't like the artwork so much on the TCG player side. I mean, the crowns and all that kind of stuff with the Obsidian Flames. Okay, I get that. But man, there's some killer cards in the artworks on these cards and some of the alt arts in there and the secret rares.
I agree.
Man, beautiful. Like the Cleffa from Obsidian Flames.
Yep.
Beautiful card. Yep. Absolutely beautiful. My son got it. I said, I'll trade it to you. I'll trade that. So what do you want from my binder?
The whole Pidgeot line too, right? Like I absolutely
I mean, that's
love
amazing.
It is so sick. And I mean it's beautiful artwork. I mean, again,
I love it,
I'm not rushing to pick any of the booster boxes up, but 5 years from now, we're gonna go, do you remember when that was $90 a freaking booster box? Right?
Like we could buy those for $6 each. I mean,
yeah, it's just crazy, man. It's crazy. Yeah. And the Miriam special illustration rare, that Iono, like those are going to be iconic. Those will be worth. I think those are going to do really well in the long run. I mean, just look at what the Marnie's doing, right? Like that Marnie from Sword and Shield base. You know, over the last, I just, put the bow tie on a video, and from December 2022 to now, that's up 55%. Almost every other card in that set is down double digits, but not the Marnie, right? Like
Marnie's up.
So.
Yeah, and a lot of that too, and it's one of the things I've been trying to weave into it, and to be honest, it's not too easy. And that's the TCG side of it. I've been trying to weave in what's the impact of that, looking at decks that are currently in play, top performing decks. And yeah, you can pick out some singles, but it's really hard to predict where it's going and which decks will be dominant. I mean, it's hard to weave that into the whole investing and collecting space of it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm trying, but I haven't got anything where I'm confident enough to share it. It's been hard. Yeah,
I haven't even started that path, so you're a better man than I. But it's a key component. The question is there going to be any lasting effect, right? Like, or is it just going to pop, right? Like Regilecki popped off there not long ago, and I had 4 of them, and I sold all of them on eBay real quick for $20, and then it died. Yeah. And so is it something that as a long-term collector or a long-term investor, like I consider myself a growth collector. I don't consider myself an investor, right? Like if you're an investor, you buy something with the intent to sell it at a future date, either to reinvest or to fund your future lifestyle. And I don't have an intent on selling, so I can't really call myself an investor. Like I'm a growth collector. I want to collect things that I think are going to appreciate and value, that I can hand down to the kids, or I don't know. So I don't know what to tell them to do with it.
I think we're going to be really old men with a bunch of awesome cards.
That's right.
we're gonna be getting our big thick glasses at the time. We're
That's
gonna have
right.
no
That's
hair on
right.
top of our head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can't see it anymore. Let me get my big light. Pull it down.
Because I
Get that
thought that I'm like,
magnifying
oh
glass.
man, when this card hits a certain price, I'm gonna sell it. And it hits the price, and I'm like, no, I'm not selling it.
Well, when it hits the next price, then I'll
That's
sell
right.
it.
Yeah. When it hits this price.
Well, and I've never been in the position where I've had to have a multi-million-dollar card in my hands or even $1 million card in my hands and say, well, am I going to keep this or am I going to sell it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know what I say today, but we'll see if that ever occurs. But it could be something I would consider, especially at those higher dollar amounts. I mean, I do have small stuff that I usually do because mine's typically around collection buyouts, and that's how I fund most of this. Cool. So I'll do collection buyouts. I'll go through it, and I'll basically put what I need in my binder, which ones that I not have, go ahead and fill in my empty spots. And then if there's a few that look really good, worth grading, because that's typically what I'll do is the collection I'll buy will be enough cards to grade to pay for it. And then the rest of it's just free. That's typically the path that I'll take. And so I'll take out those ones that I plan on grading, not to mention the ones that I keep. And it's like, well, I'm going to grade that. And you look at it, well, maybe not. Let me see if there's a different one. Let me see if there's a different one in here.
It's got a print dot. You can't see the print dot, but it's there. This will not get a high grade. It's got to go in the binder. Oh, darn.
That's right. Let me sleeve that up and I'll put it right there in the binder. But and then I'll sell the rest. I mean, kind of to your point, I'll sell the rest, and I'll run a store as well on a TCG player and eBay and all the rest of them, and just get rid of the stuff that I'm not going to use. Somebody else may want it, and run it at a good price, and hopefully it'll help somebody else's collection. But that's been the way that we've funded a lot of this. So
that's awesome.
It's really helped out to make it enjoyable, but also really jumpstart. I mean, you'll be surprised how many really great collections are out there. I mean, these people, they cracked a bunch of stuff from XY, black and white, and they just boxed it up and they just left it sitting there.
Yeah.
And these things are, I mean, I almost have complete sets of so many things. And it's interesting because I thought I really want to open up a lot of this stuff. Say, hey, if I ever get like a booster box, I would love to open up X, Y, or Z. Right. But now as I complete or get close to completing the sets, I'm like, I don't really have a need to open up that box anymore. I'll just stick with the modern stuff.
Right.
But if I can just complete this set, I don't need to open black and white base.
Yeah.
I'll
just cool, man. That's so cool. I love that.
It helps out a lot. It really does. And the kids get to see all the cards. They always walk into my office and say, Dad, what do you got now? It's like, I got this and this, but don't touch anything. I'm in the middle of organizing.
I do that too. I have to catch myself sometimes. I'm like, all right, PikaPikaPapa, calm down. It's freaking about the kids. So take your foot off the gas a little bit. They can touch that common card.
It's okay, fine. But just put it back the way it was, please. Put it back the way it was.
That's right.
All right, my man. Well, we'll finish with this. I ask 2 questions at the end of every podcast. One of them is more personalized to the person that we're interviewing for the day. And the second one is more broadly just more of a legacy topic. So the first one is, from your point of view, when I look at each of the people I bring on, I look at their specialty. Mm-hmm. And I think you're quite broad in your range in terms of what you do, what you're capable of. You're collecting, you're investing, you're selling a little bit here and there, but you're just a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. And you do all those things really well. So I guess then from that point of view is looking at somebody started in the Pokemon hobby, what advice would you give that person that's starting today and they see your channel for the first time or they hear this podcast? What advice would you give that person starting the hobby?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'd probably give them the same advice that I was just dumb lucky enough to follow when I first started collecting slabs all those years ago was, find your focus, find your passion. I very easily could have fallen out of collecting as a whole if I didn't happen to find something that I really loved right off the bat and got passionate about and felt connected to and thought about the history behind it. So if somebody is just getting into it, find something and focus on it. To your point, there is a whole smattering of things in the Pokemon space that you can go after. There's sealed products, there's raw cards, there's slab cards, and then all kinds of different fingerlings that feed off of that. And if you haven't been doing it for a long time, it's very easy to get lost in all that. So, I would say everybody find your focus and then just be patient. If you're jumping in this because you want to turn a quick nickel, or if you want to, buy your next Tesla in the next 6 months with your earnings from flipping Pokemon cards. I'm not saying it can't happen, but just don't. That's not. It's challenging. It's hard,
Yeah.
right?
Be
There's
patient.
tons of people. There's tons of people who are out there trying to do it and failing. Not saying that you can't be the one to succeed, but just be patient. As I said, the two biggest things, has been time and patience. And I'll tell you this: I've got a sports card collection that could buy a house, and I collected that while I was a server. I collected it while I worked as a commercial fisherman on a fishing boat. I collected that. Like, I've had various different. You don't have to have a lot of money in order to build an incredible collection. Like, you just have to have focus and time, and it doesn't matter what
I
you
like that.
do. It's all about believing in it, and don't rush into anything. Patience. So yeah, I mean, I
I
used
like
to
that.
remember when I was waiting tables. I mean, I would make $100 in a night, and I'd be like, okay, 50 in the bank, and then 50 I'm gonna, buy a football card with. And then the other biggest thing that I'd be remiss if I didn't say is share your love of the hobby with everybody. I
Exactly.
will tell you this: for the last 20 years, for every Christmas or birthday or meaningful milestone in PikaPikaPapa's life, I have asked for one thing: PSA graded football cards. And I left nothing to risk. I would literally print out the ones that I don't have. I would put a link on there to the eBay listing. I would have the price next to them. So I'd be like, okay, if you love me a little
Oh,
bit,
that's
here's one
good.
for $50. If you love me a lot, here's one for $200. And that's what I did for every Christmas, every birthday, everything. I would guarantee you that probably 30% of my collection has been gifted to me over the
Gifts.
years.
That's
And
awesome.
think about
That's
that. Think
awesome.
about all the changes in your life. Like, my dad passed away a couple months ago, and some of my most prized possessions are
Sorry.
cards that he's given me over Christmas. That 1911 Ty Cobb T206, he picked it up for $100 at a cancer charity auction, and he gave it to
Wow.
me raw. And I sent it through to PSA, and it got graded a PSA 5. That's a
Wow.
that's a high 5-figure card right there. And so not only when you share the passion with others is it a cool way to grow your collection, but these memories, man, girls who have come and gone, like I have cards girlfriends gave me all the way, there's just so many memories. And as people come and go out of your life, you're going to have these things forever. Some of them are good, some of them are bad memories. But
I love the Christmas list idea. I love that
there you
birthday
go.
list idea.
And do it.
Here's the
Leave nothing to
list. Here's
chance. Don't do it, or else they'll buy you some like random. They'll be like, "Oh, I bought this for $50 on Amazon, and it said 50 shinies," and I'm like, "No,
exactly.
don't do that."
These gold Pokemon cards in the
That's,
pack.
that's
It's like,
right.
no. No, good stuff. I like
Funny.
that one. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
All right, well, then we'll end it with this, Ryan. We're all going to leave the hobby one day, whether it's forced or not.
That's right.
And my question to everybody has been, what legacy do you want to leave in the Pokemon hobby when you're gone?
Good question. I hope that I don't want to say educate people because I'm not a teacher, but I hope that I open some people's eyes to looking at things a different way. I hope that I encourage people to ask more why and a little less what. I hope that through our endeavors to give back and to bring smiles to faces, I hope that I inspire more people to do the same thing, because the world could sure use a whole lot more of that out there.
That's right.
I just hope that in whatever little way I end up being able to impact the hobby, I hope that it's something for positive, and I hope that it has those ripple effects out there where, the impact that people made on us in our time of need has reflected on us, making more impacts on those people in their times of needs. And it just hopefully will snowball and ripple, because our kids are going to have a heck of a world when they're our age. And I hope it's the best it can be. And that's going to start with all of us out here doing good
Exactly.
things.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I guess just inspiring others and encouraging people to ask why, and seeing where it all shakes out in the end.
I love it, Ryan. This has been an absolute blast.
This has
As I
been
said
fun.
to you in the beginning, man, I don't take time lightly, as you don't either, apparently. And it's something that I'm deeply grateful that you spent it with us here today at Pokemon Wonder. I really appreciate it. Again, big thanks to your wife and your kids as well for sharing your time with me and all the community here. And we wish everybody a great night. We thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to have all the links for PikaPikaPapa's social, eBay, and everything else in the description of the video. So feel free to check those out after the showing. And if you have any questions, always let us know. We're happy to hear from you. Wish everybody a great night. Take care. We look forward to seeing you in the next one, everybody.
All right. Appreciate you, everybody. Have an epic night. I want to wait.